enforcement analyst, Matthew Horace. First of all, I just want to get your reaction to this decision that we learned about today.
Well, I mean, you know, the process has netted itself out. The district attorney has led a massive investigation involving hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of evidence, and this is what he has found. And at the end of the day, the public and law enforcement, everyone else is going to have to accept those facts.
You and I have talked often, and as recently as last week, about the impact of social media, the impact of cell phone video, especially in this case, in these incidents, and the role that that plays in public perception of what happened, and even in the way the facts are sent out here. When you see that video, what stands out to you? What do you see as a law enforcement professional that speaks to you?
Well, the video is troubling to me because as a 28-year veteran, I put myself in that same situation, and it is stressful, it's tenuous, and, you know, it's very, very, very dangerous. And that's what we see when we watch it. The public sees a very different thing, and we understand the sensitivities and the conditions that we live in. It creates those questions that we've had ever since the incident started.
What do you think the impact of this decision will be? We heard from the family attorneys to say they are continuing their investigations. Perhaps that leads to some sort of a civil lawsuit. We don't know the answer to that. They just said that it is ongoing. They asked people to reserve judgment at this time. But what is your thought in terms of public perception of what we're going to see?
Well, hopefully the public will hear every bit of the implicit evidence that the prosecutors presented today. They went from A to Z. They talked about every single point of what happened on this case, and I don't think anyone who's watching that can appreciate the work that was put into this investigation. 2 months, a mound of evidence, and they presented it all in public on social media for the media and for the public.
One of the things I know that you were really focused on were the nuts and bolts, honestly, of how this incident transpired, and sort of the timeline of it almost. When we heard the officer say, put the gun down, we heard his wife say he didn't have a weapon. But we heard him say it multiple times. Why is that important?
Well, you know, we're trained to give lawful commands, especially when we see gun. When we see gun, we see threat. And when we see threat, we address that threat first by verbal commands. Drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. It's a very tense situation, but the public heard it. We all heard it 10 times. The weapon. Now, if you listen to the narrative presented by his sister, he doesn't have a gun. Well, he did have a gun. I think that was very clear here. And, you know, there's something else, Erica, here that I want to say before we get off today. There's this understanding or a question that we're supposed to wait for some reason to see the barrel of the gun before we met confrontation. That's just not the case. If we wait to see the barrel of the gun, it very well may be too late for us.
Maybe too late for you, but as you pointed out, when the public sees some of this video, when they hear his wife saying he doesn't have a gun, he has a traumatic brain injury, he took his medication, a lot of people can understand why people were up in arms, why there were protests, and even why the attorneys for the family today were saying, look, we only want you to react to this peacefully, hold any judgment. How do we, and I know we've asked this before, but I have to ask again, how do we start to have the conversation to bring both the police and the community together to better understand each side?
Well, I think every law enforcement leader that I've heard over the past 5 years has said the same thing. We have to bring community and police closer. It's on us to take the steps. It's on the community to take the steps. But when we hear the answers, when we hear the facts, when we hear the facts presenting, the fact patterns, we have to be willing to listen and accept those facts. But we also need wholesale police reform in the United States also to address these incidents that have brought us to this place.
Matthew Horace, always appreciate you joining us and appreciate your insight and perspective. Thank you.
Have a great day.